Hello, everyone. I hope you are doing well. This week's parsha is vayeshev, and it's the first parsha where we get like sort of the narrative of Yosef, of Joseph. And usually, I love these parshiot. I really love the parshiot about Yosef. So we'll talk a little bit about him. But there's actually a little story that happens in between the narrative of Yosef that I think is a little more interesting. Okay. So the parsha begins with Yosef. He's like the favorite. Yaakov gives him this coat of many colors. It's called ketonet pasim. It's like woolen fancy coat. Again, if we remember, Yaakov has a lot of sons, and Yosef is his favorite because Yosef comes from his favorite wife, Rachel. And also, Yosef, it says that Yosef is Yaakov's favorite because he's a child in his old age. That you know how parents get a little softer as the years go on, and Yosef is one of his last children, so he gets particularly connected to him. Yosef is annoying, though. He tattletales on his brothers. He doesn't have to work so hard because he's young and he's the favorite. Enough time passes. He has all these dreams, two dreams where he is better than his brothers. And spoiler alert, we know that that's true, that his dreams are actually prophetic, but it's still super annoying that he goes around telling people these things. So it gets to the point where the brothers are fed up. And one day Yosef is sent out to go see how they're doing, see how their work is going. And as he's approaching them, they're like, you know what? It's Levi and Shimon, Levi and Simeon that decide this. Like, you know what? This is enough. Let's kill him. And Reuben is like, no, don't kill him. Throw him in this pit. And he's planning to come back later and save Yosef, take him out of the pit. So the brothers throw Yosef in the pit, and then they're hanging out, and they see this tribe of Ishmaelites, Arab people who are selling like peddler type people, and they're like, you know what's a good idea? We should take him out of the pit, and we should sell him to the Ishmaelites. That's exactly what they do. They sell Yosef to the Ishmaelites. Yosef is taken into Mitzrayim, into Egypt, and he's put up for sale as a slave. And this guy named Potiphar, who I think was like the Pharaoh's butcher or something, he was like in charge of all the meats or something, sees Yosef and is like, I want that one. So he takes Yosef back to his house. Yosef is super, super great and good at being a slave. He's like the hardest working slave, but he also is cursed with crazy beauty, like just like eye-shattering beauty. He's so handsome, in fact, that Potiphar's wife falls in love with him and wants to sleep with him. And so for day after day after day, she's always like, hey, Yosef, come around to the back. Whatever. It's like day after day after day. She's just berating Yosef, sexually harassing him for many, many, many days. Until one day he comes in for work and there's no one there. And she's like, this is my chance. So she grabs him by his clothes, because what we infer is that he runs away and she's still holding his clothes. It says that Yosef runs away from his clothes. And then she is embarrassed and accuses him of sexually assaulting her. Then Yosef is sent to prison, and he meets these two guys in prison, a baker and a cupbearer. And they both have had these really weird dreams, and there's no one to interpret them. And Yosef is like, well, I've been known to interpret a dream or two. And so he interprets the dream of the cupbearer, and the cupbearer's dream, Yosef sees that, no, you're going to be let out of prison soon. Your dream was good. And the baker's dream, or the butler, I forget they're exactly there. Oh, no, it's the baker. And the baker has his dream, and Yosef hears the dream and is like, oh, that's not a good one. But the cupbearer actually does get out of prison. Yosef says, remember me, please remember me. And the parsha ends with the cupbearer leaving prison, but he does not remember Yosef. It's kind of a sad ending for the parsha. That's the story of Yosef. Two quick little notes. When Yosef is sold to the Ishmaelites, it is specifically noted that these are Ishmaelites that are selling lotus, balm, and something else, like beautiful smelling things. And the commentary tells us that why is it being noted what these people are selling? It's being noted because this particular type of Ishmaelite, this particular type of peddler, normally peddles tar and things that smell terrible. But this is a sign that Hashem, that God was watching over and guiding Yosef, that the particular people that were selling to him as slaves, they were just peddlers, but they were peddlers of beautiful smelling things. So that Yosef would have a beautiful smell accompanying him to a terrible, terrible thing, being sold into slavery by his brothers. That's a beautiful thing that we can think about, that anytime we're experiencing a negativity, we can always look for the smell of balm, of blossom, of whatever it is that we something positive around. I've definitely seen examples of these in my own life, and I really love that concept. And then, like I said, there's a story in the middle of this narrative of Yosef, and it's about Yehuda, Judah, one of Yosef's brothers. Okay, so Yehuda has two sons, Onan and Er. Okay, so Onan is married to is set off to be married to this woman named Tamar, and Tamar is really beautiful. And Onan, according to our commentary, Onan is very vain about Tamar's beauty. He doesn't want her beauty to be marred by her pregnancy, so he refuses to get her pregnant. So every time they are intimate, he spills his seed, which is a really big sin. You're really not supposed to do this. Because he does this, he is struck down and he dies. And so then Tamar moves on to the next brother, Er. Er is also not a great guy. Not only does Er also do the same thing where he doesn't want Tamar's beauty to be marred, and so he spills the seed every time they are intimate, he also actively doesn't want to provide any heirs for his brother. He knows that if he gets Tamar pregnant, those children will be the spiritual heirs of his brother. And so God does not like this, and God strikes him down as well. And Yehuda sees Tamar, that both of her husbands have died, and he's like, it has to be her fault. It has to be her fault. He has another son, but he's like, you know what? He's the son. The other son is still young. He's like, you know what? I'll marry you off to him later. And Tamar's like, he's not going to marry me off. She has this sort of prophetic feeling that she is important, that her children that she provides will be important in lineage. And so Tamar devises a plan. She decides that she's going to pretend to be a prostitute and approach Yehuda on the street. Yehuda is also, his wife has died, so it's not wrong to do. Tamar tricks Yehuda into sleeping with her, and then she becomes pregnant. And when it's revealed that she tricked her husband, her father-in-law, she's brought before the people, and they're like, this is bad. Why did you do this, Tamar? And she explains kind of that she was doing this for the purpose of the divine lineage that she knows she was supposed to provide. And so Yehuda is like, no, you're right. I'm sorry that my sons were like this. You're right. You're good. And so she has two sons. One of those sons is named Peretz. The name Peretz is important because where do we see that name? We see it in the book of Ruth. So there's a really long section of lineage. If we remember, the important thing about Ruth is that she is the great grandmother, I believe, to David Hamelech, King David. And if we look in the lineage that's listed in the book of Ruth, it begins with Peretz, one of these children that Tamar, this righteous woman who knew that there was something divine in her lineage, she made happen. She took charge of her fate and made it happen. So again, it's like Tamar gives birth to Peretz, and then Peretz has a few more children, and then there's and then at some point, Ruth comes in. Yeah, Ruth has Oved. Oved has Yishai, and Yishai is the father of David. So we see this example of Tamar, this righteous woman who knows that she's meant to do something right and does it and makes things happen for herself. And everyone always looks at this story and they're like, this is such a weird story. Tamar hiding and trying to sleep with her father-in-law. No, she's a prophetess who does what she needs to do. And I just think that's a really great story that we don't focus on enough. So that's this week's Parsha, and that ended up being longer than I anticipated. But thank you all for listening. Shabbat Shalom, and I will, God willing, see you all next week.